What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Crimson Moon is almost here. It arrives next Tuesday on September the 1st, and it costs $20. The early word is in from everybody who got hands-on with it, and I have to be honest with you, it is more split than I expected. Some of these previews walked away genuinely impressed. One of them came away pointing readers at a different game entirely. So the question today is a simple one. Is this a $20 Souls-like punching way above its price? Or is it a good combat system attached to a world that does not hold together? We are going through what the people who actually played it said, the praise and the concerns and the criticism that two outlets landed on independently. There is also one huge part of this game that almost nobody in the press got to test. No spoilers here and no scores either because nobody has finished it. Let us dive in. Before anything else, I want to be straight about what this is built on. Every impression in this video comes from a demo. The sessions ran from about 20 minutes up to about 30. The longest anybody managed was 2 full runs. These were played at events back in March and June, that is months before release, and it was not a finished build. There are no review scores anywhere yet because reviews have not happened, and here's the one that matters most to me. This game is designed around 2 players. Almost nobody in the press actually played it that way, so when I say the early word, I mean short slices played alone. That is still genuinely useful for how a game feels in your hands. You can tell a lot about weight and timing in 20 minutes. What you cannot tell is whether it still holds up after 20 hours. We will not really know that until people play the whole thing. Let us start where the previews agreed the most. That is how it actually feels to swing a weapon. RPG Site got specific about it. They said swings have an acceleration that makes the timing of attack animations easy to learn. Contact with enemies felt appropriately weighted and intuitive. They called out the sound effects as satisfying too. And crucially, they said it never felt floaty or weightless. Console created it more bluntly than that. Every blow feels solid and crunchy. They also liked that special moves sit on cooldown timers. That gives you extra options for managing a fight instead of just rolling and hitting. Gaming Trend picked out something I did not expect at all. They were a huge fan of the shield. It actually felt like it was helping, unlike a lot of games where a shield is an afterthought. That is a small detail that tells you a lot. If blocking is a real option here, this is not purely a dodge roll game, but it was not unanimous, and I think this is the most useful preview in the whole batch. Noisy Pixel came away noticeably cooler on it. Their line was that the combat is not quite polished in the ways the best Souls-likes are, and they got specific about why. If they were not locked onto an enemy, they found it near impossible to land a clean blow. That is worth sitting with for a second. Lock on carrying that much weight can mean the free swing is not properly tuned yet, and in a game that throws crowds of demons at you, you are not always locked on. They measured it against the studios that do this best. Their verdict was that it does not reach that bar. Now, that was one session months ago on an early build, but it is the sort of thing that does not usually fix itself by accident, so it goes on the list of things to watch for at launch. Now, the thing everybody wanted to talk about, you are a Nephilim, which means half human and half angel. You can shift into a celestial form in the middle of a fight. Previews described it as giving you super strength and regenerating health. It is governed by a meter that fills up as you fight, so it rewards aggression rather than being something you sit on and save. Gaming Trend called it a super cool angelic transformation. They said it does massive damage once the meter is full, and Noisy Pixel were critical almost everywhere else in their preview. They still said they enjoyed transforming and wreaking havoc on enemies. I find that genuinely telling. When your harshest preview singles out one system as fun, that system is probably working. The developers call the resource behind it Angel Power. What nobody can tell us yet is how it scales later on, or whether it still feels special on your 40th run. Here's where Crimson Moon stops behaving like a normal Souls-like. It is built around runs. Missions last roughly 15 to 45 minutes with layouts that shift underneath you, and it hands you something most Souls-likes refuse to give, which is extra lives. RPG Site said the live system gives the game a unique arcade-like quality. Having 3 revives let them play a little more recklessly than usual. Gaming Trend went further on this. They said you have multiple chances not to die. They called it their saving grace. It stopped them getting too irritated when they did fully die. That is a deliberate design decision, and it tells you who this game is for. Gaming Trend summed the difficulty up in 5 words. Punishing, yes, but never unfair. If you have bounced off Souls-likes before, that framing should get your attention. The flip side is obvious enough. Extra lives can take the sting out of a genre built on consequence. The other half of the roguelike is what you build while you're in there. Console creatures thought this was the best thing about the entire formula. Their line was that the biggest strength is making split-second decisions about your build. You're picking boons as you go, and it is usually one of three. Those picks shove you down a path you did not plan on. They compared that pressure favorably to Elden Ring Night Rain. That is a serious comparison to reach for, but here is the gap in what we actually know. RPG Site said they could not work out how the buildcraft works in the big picture. They were not clear on what carries over permanently. They also could not tell what simply vanishes when a run ends. For a game like this, that is the single most important question there is. It is the difference between 100 hours and 10, and a 20-minute demo was never going to answer it. Now the concern, and this is the one I would weigh most heavily, two separate outlets arrived at it independently. Noisy Pixel said the game is built from separate areas stitched together into a run. Because of that, it is never able to establish a cohesive enough world design. RPG Site described almost exactly the same problem from a different angle. They found the layout uneven and lacking the natural guidance you get elsewhere. Their phrase was procedurally stitched together, connecting rooms. When two writers who disagree about the combat agree about the levels, that is a pattern. It is not just one bad session. There is even a tell inside the game itself. There is a built-in mechanic for locating enemies. Noisy Pixel read that as a sign the levels do not guide you well enough on their own. It also happens to be the hardest thing to fix this late. Level flow is architecture rather than a number in a spreadsheet. On the visuals, there is a genuine disagreement, and I find it fascinating. Some of these previews genuinely love the look of it. One described a stark and remarkable visual identity. Their words were gorgeous, seraphic, and demonic overtones. This is a gothic high Renaissance city being torn apart by an infernal legion. When that lands, it apparently really lands. Console creatures did not see it that way at all. They said they wished Crimson Moon had a bit more to help it stand out. Both of those things can be true at once. Strong art direction can still blur into every other dark fantasy game beside it, and that matters for a $20 release trying to catch your eye. September is a busy month for this genre. Art direction is also the most personal thing in any preview. What reads as generic to one writer reads as atmosphere to somebody else. This is the one where I would trust your own eyes, go and watch a trailer and see which camp you land in, which brings me to the biggest hole in all of this. Crimson Moon is designed around 2 players. The studio says it is completely built for co-op. They also say it stays entirely playable on your own. There are ability synergies and you can revive each other mid-battle. The developers say they test single player and co-op every single day, and yet almost every preview I read was played solo. Noisy Pixel said outright that they only experienced single player. They added that co-op might well improve the experience, so the headline feature of this game is essentially untested by the press. That cuts both ways. If the co-op is great, several of these previews are underselling it badly. If it is not, then the solo experience is what you're actually buying, and we will not know which until launch day. This is the single biggest reason to wait a couple of days before deciding. So let us talk about the number that reframes all of this. The standard edition is $20. It launches September the 1st on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. On PC, it is on both Steam and the Epic Games Store. There's a $30 deluxe with an armor set and a weapon cosmetic. That one also includes an upcoming expansion. It is developed and published by Probably Monsters. Now, hold that price up next to the concerns. A world that feels stitched together is a much smaller complaint at $20. It would be a serious one at $70, but the flip side is the calendar. Noisy Pixel pointed out it is landing in a crowded September. They actually pointed readers toward a rival release instead. That is a brutal thing to read. 1 week out, the price is this game's strongest argument. The release date might be its weakest. $20 buys a lot of patience from me, and it should from you too. So where does that leave us? Here is my honest read, and it is not a score. Nobody has finished this game yet, so a score would be dishonest. The combat sounds like the strongest part by a distance. People who disagreed about almost everything else still agreed that swinging a weapon feels good. That is the hardest thing to get right and the most expensive thing to fix. The live system and the difficulty framing point at a specific player. This looks aimed at people who like the idea of a Souls-like, but bounce off the punishment. And at $20, the bar it has to clear is a low one. What worries me is the connective tissue. If the levels do not hold together, a run-based game gets repetitive fast. That is the exact failure mode this whole genre has. So here is where I land for now. If you want a co-op action game to chew through with a friend, jump in. $20 is not a big swing for that. If you are buying it to play alone and you want a world to get lost in, wait, give it a few days and see what people say once they have played all of it. Now, I want to hear from you. Does that stitched together criticism put you off, or does the price cover it? I will keep you posted on this one all the way through launch week. I have got a full breakdown coming in a few days. That one has my actual verdict on whether it is worth your money. So subscribe and turn notifications on if you want it before the 1st. And if you missed it, there is already a complete systems breakdown on the channel. That one covers the story and the mission board and the bosses. It is a good watch. If you want the full picture before launch, let me know in the comments which loadout you are starting with. I am genuinely curious how this one turns out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.